The first thing that you have to take into account is that every one of your customers will have a plan. And the plan will govern the direction of the purchase they're going to make. In other words, it will be part of your sales engagement with them. The key thing about understanding customers' purchasing processes and their purchasing motivations is what you've got to get round in your head is, why will people change? The important thing in sales motivation is customers buy to change. And we're agents of change. In fact, as salespeople, that's all we do. We ask people to change. We ask people to change supplier, change product, change prices, change terms and conditions. What we ask them to do is change. Most people are resistant to change. So you've got to give them a reason to it. And what this actually comes from is, once you've established what change is, the next thing that we have to do is we have to establish why will they change. And the important thing about change is people won't do it on their own. People need stimulus to change. So when we come to the next one, is you say, why change? There's usually only two reasons. Two reasons for both you personally and corporately. The first one is they have a problem that they need to solve. Something going on in the business, something going on in their organisation, something going on in their world. Something is going wrong and they need to fix it. The second reason people change is because they have an opportunity. Now sometimes the opportunity is just one of your competitors has come and offered them a lower price. So the opportunity to take advantage of a lower price is not a problem. It's an opportunity. So when we look at an organisation that is putting a plan together that says, we're going to change. Why are we going to change? We're going to change because we have to solve a problem. Or we're going to change because I want to take advantage of an opportunity. This is a crucial piece of differential that every salesperson has to make. And I'm looking for the first 5 minutes of every sale. If you're not doing this in the first 5 minutes of every sale, you're probably not going to make the right decision as to how you engage for the next, could be 6 months of the sales campaign. And one of the things that regularly happens here is that at the end of a sales campaign, when the customer says to you, well, that was a nice exercise, and everyone's heart drops. You think, well, but you were telling me all along that you had problems. If what you haven't done is you haven't identified what the problems are and quantified them, it's quite possible that it's only been an opportunity they want to take advantage of. At that point, this is where you lose your edge. So embedded in the problem and embedded in the opportunity, the next thing that every customer has to look at is, how will they buy this? Now embedded in the how of this is the process. Some organisations have more structured and formal processes, others are slightly informal and they are more acceptable to the people involved. Others are very tightly structured. So if you're selling to central government, or if you're selling to a big corporation, they will probably have audit procedures, purchasing rules, probably even a purchasing process book that they have to follow. So the process is key, after you know why they're doing it. A lot of people, that when they're selling, particularly to central or local government, they get bogged down in the process and they forget the reason. And in some cases, maybe the stimulus for the reason is an opportunity internally as opposed to a problem externally. The reason that you have to work out not just how they're doing it, but why they're doing it, is absolutely crucial. So after we've worked out what the change is going to be, why they're going to change, and how they're going to do it, the next thing we have to look at is who. Now the who of this is the decision-making unit. Most organisations these days on significant purchases will have more than one person engaged in the decision. What that means is we have to work out who the people are, what their role in this decision is, and what their individual and corporate motives are going to be. And then how do we engage with that is quite important. So once we've worked out who, then we can start looking at the next phase. The next thing that we have to do is we then look at phase 2. And phase 2 is where the customer goes into comparison, where they compare the solutions. Now obviously embedded in this is the solution. So they'll be looking at your product, your service, they'll be looking at what you do. But without being rude to most of us, that is the least of what a customer looks at. The first thing is, obviously, if you can't do what they won't be talking to you. But primarily when we look at a value proposition and we are selling to a value proposition, what we need to be engaged with the customers is the recognition of what their true comparison is. Now, the true comparison, obviously, because it's business, will include the price. But when we talk about price in a comparison sense with a customer's hat on, we're not just looking at how much they're spending on your product. Primarily the comparison is going to be value oriented, because every customer you're involved with will not just be looking at how much they're spending, but they're looking at what their return on investment is. You do it yourself when you buy things. When you're going on holiday, you're looking at the value of how much is it going to cost me and how much fun am I going to have. When you go and buy a new suit or you go and buy a new car, you're saying, how much is it going to cost me and how long is it going to last? And if you're going to buy clothes, what you might do is you say, how long is it going to last me and how long is it going to look good? So you then put another qualitative element into the quantitative life of the product. That's what your customer's doing every time. So when they look at their relationship with you, they're saying, obviously it's going to cost me because it's a business relationship, but what's my return on this? What do I get back out of this? And then also, in contrast to maybe personal conversations, you're going to find that customers have what we call a TCO. And a TCO is their evaluation of the total cost of ownership. So how much is this going to cost me over the life of owning this product or service? Because what you're going to find here is that the value itself, when you look at value, it actually is a result of the price. The price is part of the investment and the value is part of the return. So when you start looking at the total cost of ownership, it always is relating back to the value. Now, obviously to get value you always have price. This is the key point of comparison. What is it going to be worth to move to you? What you're going to find is most of your customers today will be doing phases 1 and 2 in room 101 without you. We give them a lot of information on the internet and on our websites to enable them to make these decisions and to make this analysis prior to us. A few years ago, every customer would have needed lots of conversations with salespeople, looking at brochures, talking to people, seeing demonstrations. A lot of it is done without access to field sales teams anymore. So in effect, what you might find is that when we get to phase 3, which we will call the acquisition phase, when your customer is trying to acquire the product or service, at that point what you're going to find is this is where you must be involved. If, however, you allow the customer to engage with you purely at this level, and you don't turn the clock back and start talking to the customer about what their plan is, and the 3 key points of why, how and who, if you don't go back to that, and if you don't ask them what their comparison terms are, and what their key points of value orientation are, what will happen is, when you get to acquire, there will only be one place for you to go, and that will be for you to give price down. That means that the predominant conversation you're going to have with a customer will be just the price, because you don't know what the value is, you don't know what the total cost of ownership is, you don't know who else is involved and who else has any pain or problems engaged, you don't know what the problem or the opportunity is, and you don't know what the milestones are. If you don't know all of this and you just engage in acquire, the only place you can go is to give a better price. And that won't help us when it comes to selling a value proposition. And the key element that we're looking for here is, when we get to this, we want to take the price. We don't want it to be discount, we want it to be value. And when we look at it and we start selling value, that means we're in the proper sales arena. And then finally, I won't go and make a big fuss about it today, but then finally, phase 4 is implement. I don't know if you realise this or not, it's one of these counterintuitive thought processes. Every time your customer uses your product, even when they're not sending you money for it, during the implementation phase, they are still in the buying phase. I don't know if, same for yourself, you go and buy a new car. Even when you've written a cheque to the dealer, even when the cheque has cleared your bank and they've got all your money, and even if you don't have any thought about going back to see that dealer immediately, every time you sit in that car, you're still buying it. You're still buying it from the manufacturer, you're still buying it from the dealer, and in effect, you're still validating your own decisions. That's part of the implementation phase, which is still part of the purchasing process. And the truth is that every time you get in your car, or every time you use the computer system that you've bought, or every time you use a consultancy you're engaged with, every time you engage with them and they get a tick, what it means is, if good implementation, that company, that service, that product becomes a shoo-in at the next level of planning. Becomes easier. So if you are getting a tick from the customer every time they think about you during the implementation, even if you're not there, what that means is when they come to plan an upgrade, or your competitor comes with a new idea, they will either stay with you easier, or they will come back to you to discuss the upgrade easier. Let's say, for example, you're selling carpet. So you're a carpet warehouse and someone comes to you and says, I want to fit out my office with carpet. There are two reactions. The first one is, fantastic, here's an opportunity for us to sell carpet. The second reaction is, this is fantastic, this is our opportunity for us to fit the whole of the office. And these are two different viewpoints. The guy then, let's say for example a customer rings you up and says, can you come and give us your best price to fit our offices out with carpet? The temptation might be, on the phone, is to say, well, what kind of carpet have you got in mind? Have you seen our website? Have you seen the prices on our website? Oh, and by the way, have you measured up? At that point, what you will be doing is you'll be called into an acquisition phase. And I would suspect that everyone who's buying carpet has got a rough idea how much they want to spend per yard. They've got a rough idea how many square metres they want. And they've got a rough idea, I would suspect, of the colour and quality. And if that's what you want to engage with, you might even win a sale. But how about this? Instead of when the guy on the phone says, well, what I need is, I've got 2,000 square metres, I'm looking to spend about £10 a square metre. In other words, he wants 15 quid's worth of value for £10, but I want to spend £10 per square metre, and I was hoping that you could come and fit it for us for free. Now, if you want to respond to that, I've no problem with that. You may even sell 2,000 square metres of carpet at about £10, and you might get the business. But how about this? Instead of responding to the acquisition phone call, what you do is you say, go and have a look at all of our information, and what I'd like to do is come and look at your premises. I'd like to come and talk in more detail as to, and here in the back of your mind as you're thinking is, why are you changing? What's he got at the moment? Is it just concrete floors? Is it lino? Is it wooden floors? Or has he currently got stained and ratty old carpet in the place? Why is he changing? That's the first one. And the second one is, we're embedded in the why change. Is it a problem he wants to solve, or an opportunity he wants to take advantage of? A problem in this case might be, he's got 2,000 square yards of offices, but he's got 400 square yards of demonstration suite, which are looking tatty, they're looking horrible. And he's losing business because it looks horrible. Or is it just someone has told him that carpet is cheaper these days than it was when he put it down 20 years ago? And he's thinking, it's probably about time I got round to looking at having a change. So if it comes in round about 10 quid, that'll be fine. So is he going to take advantage of an opportunity to upgrade and make things look a bit nicer? Or is he having problems at the moment because his competition down the road have opened up, they've got nicer offices, look sharper, they're selling more, and he's losing business? And I'll tell you, if that meeting only brings that piece of information, you will have a better chance of A, selling 2,000 yards completely, B, selling at a £10 plus. So the important thing about this is, as we start looking at the 4 phases, when we're looking at the plan phase, there's something I've forgotten. I've put up here why, who, and how. What have I forgotten on that?
When?
Absolutely. So what we're looking for is, we've got a ticking clock that goes on in the plan, and there will be a clock that's going on that says, we must resolve this problem by this point, or we must take advantage of this opportunity by this point. So the time is a ticking away. And it's at this point that we start looking and establishing what we would call a compelling event. This is the point at which, after we've gone past it, the problem is too big and therefore gets out of hand, and maybe we go out of business because we haven't solved it, or the opportunity disappears.